I loved the infantry because they were the underdogs. They had no comforts, and they learned to live without the necessities. And in the end, they were the guys without whom the battle could not have been won.
Those words were written by Ernie Pyle. Ernie Pyle, famous correspondent. For the folks back home, Ernie Pyle wrote a book about the GI soldier, a book called Here's Your War. NBC dramatized that book on a program called Words at War, and repeats some of those stories now. Stories told as Ernie Pyle told them.
A narrow path wound like a ribbon over a hill miles away. And along the length of that ribbon, there was a thin line of men. For 4 days and nights they had fought hard, eaten little, washed none, and slept hardly at all. Their nights had been violent with attack, fright, butchery. Their days sleepless and miserable with the crash of artillery. The men were walking, slowly, for they were dead weary. Every line of their bodies spoke their inhuman exhaustion. On their shoulders they carried heavy steel tripods, machine gun barrels, leaden boxes of ammunition. Their feet seemed to sink in the ground. There was an agony in your heart, and you felt almost ashamed to look at them. They were just guys from Broadway and Main Street. Their world can never be known to you. But if you could have seen them just once, you would know that no matter how hard people were working back home, they never kept pace with those infantrymen in Tunisia. We talk sometimes during the lulls. Talk about home, mostly.
When do you figure the war will be over, Ernie?
I don't know. It's hard to say, Snip.
This year, maybe?
I hardly think so, Riley.
I sure wish it was over. Maybe it'll be over in 1944, Ernie.
Maybe.
Boy, I sure want to get home. Back there in Texas where there's open country. I like open country where if you want to holler, you can get out and holler.
I don't care about hollering. I'd like to get back on my job.
How was your job, Riley?
I was a kind of a carpenter, but my specialty was cabinet work. That's what I like. I'm going to be a cabinet worker when I get back. Yes, sir, that's for me.
What did you do, Snip?
I drove a bakery truck. You know, sometime I'd make as high as $60 a week on that bakery route.
That's good money, Snip.
I'd make that doing cabinet work. I might even make more than that.
$60 a week would be okay for me. Of course, I don't plan on driving that bakery truck especially.
What do you plan on, Snip?
Oh, I don't know. I might do any number of things.
Say, Ernie, do you like to hunt?
Well, I guess
Listen, when the war's over, will you come hunting with me in South Carolina?
You let me take you fishing before you do that. I'll show you some fishing.
Have you ever been deer hunting in South Carolina, Ernie?
No, I haven't.
Boy, if I live through this, I'm going to do me some real fishing when I get home.
War coarsens most people. Men live rough and talk rough. And if they didn't toughen up inside, they simply wouldn't be able to take it. An officer friend of mine told me of an incident that touched him deeply. During a battle, he and a fellow officer came up to a tiny farmhouse. And just to be on the safe side, they called before entering.
Anybody in there? Who's in there?
Who's in there?
I'm in here.
Oh.
And who wants to know?
I'm Lieutenant Brown, sir. This is Lieutenant Kruger. May we come in?
Do what you please.
Captain, we won't be in your way?
You won't be in my way. I'm heating up some rations. I hope you've got some of your own.
Yes, we have, sir. May we throw our bedding down over here?
Put it where you like.
Thank you, sir.
Watch out for that man over there.
Huh? Oh, I didn't see him. He's wounded, sir.
He's dead.
Sir, I happen to have this bottle here. Would you join us in a drink?
What?
Well, will you have a drink, sir?
Drink? Have you got enough for my men outside?
Why, no, sir. Just what's here.
No, thanks.
Corson's people. My own emotions seemed dead and crusty when presented with the tangibles of war. I found I could look on rows of fresh graves without a lump in my throat. Somehow I could look on mutilated bodies without flinching. It was only when I sat alone, away from it all, thinking, that at last the enormity of those newly dead struck like a living nightmare. There were times when I felt I couldn't stand it and would have to leave. But in the fighting soldier, that phase of the war was behind. It was left behind after his first battle. His blood was up. He was fighting for his life. Killing became as much a profession to him as writing was for me. He was truly at war. And yet...
Chewing gum? Chocolate? Okay, goodbye.
And yet this same frontline soldier was quite a different fellow in the towns and villages. More often than not, he gave all his rations away to the scrawny Arab kids, then had to live on oranges and tangerines himself. The Arab kids were friendly, and our soldiers weren't 2 days in a new place until every kid in town could say in English, chocolate? Chewing gum? Okay. Goodbye.
Chewing gum? Chocolate? Okay.
Wait a minute, you guys. Anybody got any candy or gum?
Okay.
Sorry, Sonny. We're all out of gum and chocolate.
Okay.
Gee, we're sorry, Sonny. Hey, what are you crawling around the dirt for?
Come on, Sonny, get up. You're dirty enough without crawling in it.
On your feet, pal.
Hey, wait a minute, Jack.
What's the matter?
This kid can't get up.
Okay. Okay.
Say, the poor kid has to crawl. He must crawl all over town like that.
Chewing gum?
Yeah, chewing gum, Sonny. We'll find you some chewing gum. Come on now. Up you go.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
They got him some chewing gum, and more than that. They took this terribly crippled Arab back to their aerodrome. They took the wheels off a battery carrier, made a little wheel platform for the kid to lie on. Now he rolls along the streets instead of crawling in the filth. And every soldier is his friend.
Okay. Chewing gum? Chocolate? Okay. Goodbye.
Yes, war coarsens people. But it cannot harden the hearts of American boys. For all the killing they must do, so there will be an end to killing. I do not think that any of us who have seen the mass cruelty of war can ever be cruel to a living thing when this war is over. And what about you, soldier?
I'm just the same as I always was. I'm no different.
But he is different. The men over here in North Africa have changed. They're too close to themselves to sense the change, perhaps. But they have changed. In little ways. Once soldiers inevitably asked me 2 questions wherever I went.
When's the war going to be over, Ernie?
When do you think we'll get home, Ernie?
It's different now. Sure, they all still want to go home. There is something deeper now. It isn't a theatrical proclamation that the enemy must be destroyed in the name of freedom.
It's just that we got to win this war or else. And we can't be running excursion steamers back and forth across the Atlantic while we're doing it.
They're rougher than when you last saw them. War is a rough business. Money means little to them right now. They spend it freely or give it away. And they are dead sure of one thing.
Boy, if I ever get home, I'm going to stay home. I never want to see a foreign country again. I don't want to even hear about a foreign country.
But down in their hearts, they know full well.
Yeah, I bet you won't be home 6 months before you start going around talking Arabic, bragging about that girl you met in England, and telling about the beautiful sunset you saw in Germany.
Who, me? Why, Well, yeah. I guess that's just about what we'll all be doing.
You'll know them all right. They'll snap back into the ways of peace, just as they snapped into the ways of war. Meanwhile, they're well cared for. No soldiers in any other war in history have had such excellent attention. They're a healthy army. Their food is good.
Boy, what I wouldn't give for a swell steak in a Broadway restaurant.
He's thinking more of Broadway than the steak. He's thinking more of home, wherever home may be. Finally, the campaign was over. Now we're in a lull. And under this cloudless sky, and by this blue Mediterranean, there are the rows of white crosses that we must leave behind as we start for another battlefield. As we start another march, feeling as we always feel, that this is the march that will lead us home. Home. The one goal of every American who marches on foreign soil. There will always be some left behind as we go from one battlefield to another. They die, and thereby the rest of us can go on. There's nothing we can do for the ones beneath the wooden crosses, except perhaps to pause and murmur, "Thanks, pal."
That's how Ernie Pyle wrote it in his book, Here's Your War. True, there is nothing we can do for the ones beneath the wooden crosses, but there's plenty we can do for those who live to march again. We can buy war bonds, a very tangible way of putting teeth and meaning into that "thanks, pal" that Ernie Pyle was talking about. As the acknowledged authority on the common soldier, his book serves as the basis of a new movie to be called G.I. Joe. And G.I. Joe everywhere, and never more than now, today, needs your support in war bonds. This play was directed by Joseph Mansfield, and the script was by Gerald Holland. NBC now continues its 21-hour salute to 5 million bond salesmen.
The Johnson Wax program, Words at War, with Carl Van Doren. The makers of Johnson's Wax for Home and Industry, in cooperation with the Council on Books in Wartime, proudly presents one of the most widely discussed programs in America, Words at War, dramatizations of the most representative books to come out of this great world conflict. We're very very happy to have as an important feature of our series a man who really knows good books. All of you, I'm sure, are familiar with his name, for he's one of America's leading literary figures, the eminent author, biographer, and Pulitzer Prize winner, Mr. Carl Van Doren. Here is Mr. Carl Van Doren.
Thank you. Well, it's very nice for me to be here this evening and to have this chance to talk to you Johnson Wax listeners. For a great number of years, I've been with you regularly. Fibber McGee and Molly is one of my favorite radio programs. It's very satisfying, too, that the program which is to replace them for the summer months, a program in which I am to have a part, is Words at War. That, too, has been a favorite of mine ever since it was started by the National Broadcasting Company some time ago. Words at War is more important than ever in this great summer of America's life. Our hands and our heads and our hearts are all at war, and so are our words. The free words of free men have always been weapons that tyrants dread as they dread almost no others. Tonight's story is called Fair Stood the Wind for France. It's a new novel that made a great impression on me when I read it, and I'd like to tell you something about it and its author when Jack Costello has said a word in behalf of our sponsor.
Perhaps it isn't customary for a company to talk about its radio commercials with you, its radio audience. Yet I, for one, think it's a good idea. And the makers of Johnson's Wax have asked me on this initial program to say a word about their policy. You have invited us into your home as friends, and we appreciate that honor and privilege. Most of you are familiar with Johnson commercials on the Fibber McGee and Molly program. They're intended to be friendly in style, brief, and helpful because they are informative. On this new show, we hope you will find the commercial messages about various Johnson's Wax products helpful. We assure you they'll be brief, and we all mean them to be friendly. Mr. Van Doren?
Fair Stood the Wind for France is, first of all, a fine piece of writing by one of England's brilliant younger novelists, H.E. Bates. Secondly, It is a novel that only a man like Bates could have written with authority. For Bates himself is an RAF intelligence officer and has flown on many a bombing mission over France. France, where an unconquerable people live for a time in defeat under the hated rule of Nazi tyrants. But the forces of resistance, which we call the French underground, never falter and never sleep. Whatever there's a chance to do, they are ready for. But suppose we get on with the story. It begins in a bombing plane on its way home over France on a moonlit night. It is a story told by the man who knows it best, the pilot, John Franklin.
We were returning from a raid on Italy, and had left the Alps behind now, looking like crisp folds of crumpled cloth under the light of the moon. We were dead tired, the five of us. Taylor and Godwin, the youngsters, Sandy, short and bald, O'Connor, the English-bred Irishman. We were tense, yet bored, too. But most of all, we were tired. Tired and silent when it happened. Okay? Everybody okay? Taylor?
Okay, Skip.
Godwin?
Right.
Sandy?
I think so.
O'Connor?
What the devil happened, Skip? Sounded like a prop.
It was a propeller. Now look, we're not going to make it. I've got to land in the next few minutes. Sandy?
Yes, Skip?
Where are we?
West-northwest of the Vosges. South of Paris.
All right, listen now. Don't do anything cockeyed. Remember everything we've been told, okay?
Right. Okay. Right, Skip.
Hold on, I'm going down. Now, 2 days after we'd crashed, we were all right, except that there was a gash in my arm the size of a jackknife, and I'd lost a good deal of blood. We'd crossed a river to put distance between us and the plane, and it hid in a grape arbor for the night. It was after dawn now, and just beyond the arbor, I could see a girl feeding chickens in the yard of a small farm. I decided to go down and ask her for help. The others, Taylor and Godwin and Sandy and O'Connor, were against it. They thought she might report us. I was for risking it, and so I stepped out from the vines and walked toward her. A dozen paces away, she saw me. I stopped. She just looked at me with big, dark, beautiful eyes. I stepped forward again and spoke to her. Mademoiselle, I'm English.
Yes?
Can you help, please? Please, I'm an English flyer. I have my identification. You can see that I'm telling the truth. It's not a trick. Will you look at the identification? Please.
Are you alone?
There are 5 of us. We were returning from Italy. I'm the captain, and there are 4 sergeants. They're hiding in the vines. Can you help us?
I can hide you in the mill.
In the mill? That'll be all right, mademoiselle.
Wave to your friends to come down.
Yes, thank you, mademoiselle.
Your arm is injured.
It's all right.
You have lost blood.
Oh, it's quite all right, mademoiselle.
It will need attention.
No, please, my friends will take care of it. Oh, here they are, mademoiselle. Mademoiselle will help us.
Hello.
Mademoiselle will hide us in the mill.
Oh.
I will go on ahead. Follow me.
It's all right, O'Connor. She'll help us.
I don't know.
It would be easy to tuck us away in the mill and then report us.
Skip, do you think it's the thing to do?
We've got to take a chance, Taylor. We've got to trust her.
Yes, I suppose we do now. All right, let's go.
We walked toward the mill. I was raging inside, irritated by their mistrust of the girl, yet torn by doubt of her myself. Then I looked at her as she waited for us at the door, standing there looking so sure and strong and beautiful.
Please, go in.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Thanks, I'm sorry.
Musty old place.
Well, this isn't too bad, huh?
You will all be all right here. As long as you are in your flying clothes, you must stay here. If anything happens, there is a room below. There is water in it, but you can hide there.
Is anything likely to happen, mademoiselle?
One never knows. I will bring you food. You must also have other clothes.
You're very kind.
Miss, are there others up at the house?
My father. It will be all right.
You're sure?
Yes?
She said it'd be all right, didn't she? Let's not make it any more difficult than...
Skip, then what? Grab him, Taylor.
I've got it. Easy, Skip, old boy.
It is his arm. Oh, be careful.
Easy, Skip, old man. He's out cold.
We must take him to the house. He must have a doctor.
Doctor? How can you get a doctor? He'd report us.
Can be arranged, monsieur. There will be no danger for your friend. Perhaps it will help you all if I tell you that I had a brother, a flyer in the French army. He was killed before Dunkirk.
Forgive us, mademoiselle. Give me a hand, Sandy. Let's get him up to the house.
O'Connor.
Yes.
I'm going to bring her down, O'Connor.
Yes, you bring her down.
Going down, O'Connor. Hold on, you chaps. We're going down. Down. Oh. Hello.
How do you feel?
All right. I've been asleep long?
This is the third day.
Well, no.
Yes.
Couldn't be...
You had a fever. Would you like a cool drink?
Oh, yes. So would. It's good. Thank you. Have you been here all the time?
Yes.
Who are you?
Francois?
Well, my name is...
Yes, I know. John Franklin. Your friends have told
My
me...
friends? Where are they? Oh, they're all right. They haven't been...
No. They're all right. They want to see you. My father, too, wishes to talk to you. Do you feel strong enough?
Oh, yes. Get them, please.
My father will talk to you while I go to the mill. I will be gone in just a few minutes. Father, the captain is awake now.
Very well, Francois. Monsieur, I hope you feel better.
Yes, I'm better. I wish to thank you for all you have done for
It's
us.
nothing, monsieur. I have much to tell you.
Yes?
While you have been ill, I have been making arrangements in the village. I have obtained papers for you and your friends.
We can leave?
Can leave, monsieur. It is important that they do leave as quickly as possible.
We'll all go together.
No. Your arm needs the attention of a doctor, monsieur.
Oh, it's all right. I'm all right now.
No, monsieur. To put it more blunt, your friends have an opportunity to get to Spain. In your condition, you would do them no service by going with them.
Oh. I see. Well, I can't stay here. It's not fair to you.
No,
I
coming
can't
in the
do this
morning,
for
monsieur.
me. If the Germans should find out, it would mean...
I am aware of what it would mean. But, monsieur, believe me, I know what I am doing. What Francoise and I are doing is something we wish to do. I am not afraid of the Germans. They will never take me. Huh? Your friends are here. Remember what I have told you, monsieur?
Yes.
I will leave you now.
Yes, goodbye, and thank you.
He is waiting for you, monsieur.
Thank you, sir. Well, Skip, I say you look fit, doesn't he?
Certainly does. Oh, feeling all right.
Skip, that old mill isn't half bad. We made out fine. Oh, did the old boy tell you? He's got papers for us.
He told me. When are you leaving?
Leaving? Well, when the doctor gets you fixed up.
That'll be no time at all, Skip.
Once he stitches that on, you'll be as good as new.
Better than that.
Look, you're going on without me.
Skip, have you gone balmy?
No,
Quiet, please. Not a word. 2 German soldiers have just come into the yard.
Oh, no. What do we do?
Please, it may be just a routine inspection. I lock the door. Quiet now, not a word. I'll talk if necessary.
Well, I've got my revolver, and by
No,
gad, they won't...
no, monsieur, please.
Let's have a look around. What is upstairs?
Just sleeping rooms.
We'll have a look. Come, Heidi.
Nothing here. Wait a minute. There's a door at the other end there. Ah.
Yes? Who is it?
Open up, Fräulein.
Oh, I am sorry. I'm dressing.
Oh. You hear that, Hans? She's dressing.
Yes, monsieur.
What do you say to that, Hans? Let it go. Go. She's a modest young lady, huh?
Let it go, honey.
Goodbye, Fräulein. Perhaps we shall meet again sometime. When you're dressed. Come along, man.
I'll be...
Please, wait. It's all right. You're going out in the yard. Probably just a census of crops.
It was a bit too close.
It can't be that close again. O'Connor, you all leave tonight.
Oh, now,
that's
wait
not
a
a
minute.
suggestion, men. That's an order. I'm still skipper.
Well, of course you are.
Get back to the mill as soon as it's safe.
Yes, Skip. Perhaps I'd better stay in the house tonight to look after Francoise. After all, I have a revolver.
I have a revolver. I'll... After her.
Well, I just thought...
I'll do the thinking. You do as you're told, O'Connor. Go back to the mill.
Very well, sir.
They filed out of the room silently. And I felt like a dog for having talked to them that way. Especially O'Connor. And then it came to me, and I couldn't believe my own reason. What was this? Was I jealous of O'Connor over a French girl I scarcely knew myself? It didn't make sense. I tried to make it up when they came back later that night to say goodbye. 4 men who were closer to me than my own parents. I tried to say something to O'Connor, but it was no use. Yet he seemed to understand as he held my hand and said,
Goodbye, Skip.
And when they had gone, the tears came, and I let them come until I fell asleep. In the morning, the doctor told me,
You are a soldier, monsieur. There's no point to my deceiving you. The arm must come off.
Off?
Yes.
Well, can you perform the operation here?
It must be here. But, monsieur, I am humiliated to tell you this. I have no anesthetic.
Oh, I understand. You should not feel humiliated.
I am humiliated for France, where doctors have no anesthetic.
It's all right. When will it be done?
At once, I'm afraid.
It's not easy, Doctor.
No, it is not easy. I will call the girl.
Oh, Doctor, please, I'd rather she weren't here.
I'm afraid she must be here. I have no one else to assist me. Francoise, will you come now, please?
For those of you who may have tuned in a little late, this is Carl Van Doren. Tonight on the Johnson Wax program, Words of War, we are presenting a dramatization of one of the month's best-selling novels, Fair Stood the Wind for France. So far, we have followed the adventures of 5 British flyers who have been forced down in France and have been given shelter by a French peasant and his daughter. 4 of the flyers have obtained papers and have gone on in their attempt to escape. But the 5th, John Franklin, the pilot, now is about to have his injured left arm amputated. The doctor readies his instruments in the bedroom of the farmhouse. The girl, Francoise, stands by the bedside, assisting the doctor.
It would be better if you did not look, monsieur.
Thank you, Doctor. Spain. Freedom. Dear God, let them be on that train.
Now.
Doctor! No. was always there. Always strong, sure, beautiful. She dressed the stump of the arm when I couldn't bear to look at it myself. She held me as I learned to walk all over again, to regain the sense of balance that's destroyed with the loss of the arm. As the days went into weeks, she was always there, always sure.
You are much better now.
Because of you.
No, I knew you would be better.
How did you know?
Because I prayed and had faith.
Is it as simple as that?
Yes.
Do you always pray?
Yes.
Even when you go fishing, do you pray you'll catch fish?
No, but I pray for faith. And if I have faith, I will catch fish, then I catch them.
Francoise,
Hmm?
have you faith that I will get home to England someday?
Yes, I have faith.
Do you have faith that I will come back for you?
I know you will come back.
I love you, Francoise.
I love you, Jean.
Without her, I could not have survived the pain, the waves of self-pity that came over me. Her faith somehow became mine, too. She was my strength when I had none of my own. And as I grew stronger, the desire to get away left me. I didn't want to go. I wanted to stay with her, always. Then one day her father came home with news from the village.
What has happened, Father?
Trouble with the forced labor again. This time more serious. 2 Germans have been killed.
What will happen?
It has happened. You remember the doctor?
Of course.
He is dead.
No.
Oh.
They dragged him from his office, stood him up against a wall, shot him.
Oh.
But why? What could he have had to do with labor conscription?
Nothing. He was merely a prominent citizen of the town. They shot him as an example. There will be others.
Will they come here?
They will certainly come here.
I must go.
Yes.
But you, monsieur, what about you?
They will not take me.
Can you be sure?
I am sure. They will never take me. Now, you will excuse me. I will go lie down a while. I am very tired.
Of course, monsieur.
Jean.
I must get ready at once.
Yes, I suppose you must.
Be brave as you always are, my darling. Keep your faith. I will be back.
I know you will. I know.
Francoise.
Father. 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 Father.
He must have known, Francoise. He must have known he was marked to die. He said they would never take him. There was nothing to hold her now. We decided that we should go away together. I tried to persuade her that it was too dangerous, but all she would say was that she had faith, and against her faith, nothing could prevail. I stayed in the mill until the sad little funeral was over, and then we set out at dawn the morning after. Françoise did the rowing. I hid under the canvas, for there were German sentries on the bridges we passed under.
Shh. Do not move now, my darling. We are coming to a bridge.
Can you see the guard?
Yes, he is watching me. Be quiet.
You there! Halt!
Yes, monsieur?
Where are you going?
Oh, I am fishing. There is a better place around the bend.
Fishing, eh? Perhaps you have a little fish for me on the way back.
Of course, monsieur.
Good fishing, Fräulein.
Thank you, monsieur.
There were more bridges and more sentries and more narrow escapes, but at last, unbelievably, Marseille. And there, as we walked through the streets to the house of Francois' friends, miracle of miracles, a man running, gendarme after him. Darling, Francois, look. It's O'Connor.
O'Connor.
I've got to get him. Meet me, I've got to help him. O'Connor! O'Connor! Somehow O'Connor and I managed to escape the police. And that night with Francoise, we took the train for Spain. Unreality piled upon unreality, yet there we were, the three of us. And poor O'Connor, with the dull look of a hunted animal still in his eyes. You feel better, O'Connor?
I don't know. I've been half balmy, Skip.
Can you tell us now about the others?
We were separated. I don't know what happened to them. I don't know half that's happened, Skip.
It'll be over soon. One stop at the border, a routine inspection of the papers, and we're free.
And you two, you're going to be married.
Yes.
You approve, monsieur?
Oh, yes. All for it. All for it, Francoise.
We're at the border. Remember now, we separate. All meet back here in this compartment, right?
Yes, John.
Righto. Don't know if we'll make it. Seems too much to expect.
We will make it. I have faith.
Faith? Hold on to it, Francoise.
All out for inspection. All out for inspection.
Remember, we meet back here.
Yes.
Form a line. Form a line here. Have your papers ready. Form a line.
Monsieur?
Yeah, very good. Step along, monsieur. Step along.
Yes, sir.
You're next.
You're mine.
Yeah. Right.
Here.
So. Step along, monsieur. Next. Step up, mademoiselle.
Here, monsieur.
Go.
Thank you, monsieur.
Next. Hey, that girl. There's something wrong in these papers. Quick, get her back. Arrest that girl.
Pardon, madame. Have you seen a young girl come into this compartment?
There was one here a moment ago, a gendarme.
Yes?
They came to get her things. Her papers were not in order. They took her off.
Yes, madame. Francoise!
There he
I'm sorry, I've
goes.
got to get my head.
Down along the curls.
Francoise!
Shoot,
I must get past.
Johnny, I am.
Darling.
I'm all right. But O'Connor.
O'Connor! Dear God in heaven, they've shot him.
The gendarmes were taking me off the train. O'Connor saw them. He ran to divert their attention. Johnny did it for you.
He did it for us, Francoise.
Oh.
I think he loved you too. She leaned against my empty sleeve, and I let her go on crying as the train rushed on those few last 100 yards toward freedom. I knew she was not crying for herself, not for O'Connor and the stupid, wonderful thing he had done, not for her father, or brother, or the doctor, not for the magnificent France she represented. Deep inside, completely within myself, I knew why she wept. This little French girl with the great heart and the great faith. What she was really crying for was the agony of all that was happening in the world.
Mr. Van Doren will tell you about next week's story in just a moment. I often wonder if part of this present habit of taking better care of our things will last, if we'll go on being a little more careful and economical when the war is over. Take your automobile, for instance. Why not keep right on taking better care of those tires and the battery, and the car's finish, too? It's good business. The finish won't break down if you care for it with a good cleaner and polish like Johnson's Car New. Why not try Johnson's Car New on your car? It's remarkably easy to use, and it cleans and polishes in one application, 2 jobs at once. It's a liquid which dries on application to a white powder. You wipe off this powder, and your car smiles at you with gratitude. Chances are your service station, auto supply store, or regular wax dealer has Johnson's Car New right now waiting for you to ask for it. It's spelled C-A-R-N-U. Car New. Now, Mr. Van Doren, how about next week's story?
Next week on Words at War, we shall bring you a radio impression of a very provocative book, War, Criminals, and Punishment by George Creel. It is a book that asks a question of vital interest to every American. Question, what shall we do with Hitler? Unless I miss my guess, it's a program that will start a lot of hot and healthy discussion throughout the country. So be with us next week. Until then, goodbye.
Thank you, Mr. Van Doren. Tonight's Words at War program was dramatized by Gerald Holland and featured Miss Ann Shepard and Mr. Barry Kroger. Special music was composed and conducted by Morris Morsky, and the production was under the direction of Anton M. Leader. Next week, the Johnson's Wax program presents War, Criminals, and Punishment on Words at War. This is the National Broadcasting Company. The Johnson Wax Program, Words at War with Carl Van Doren. The makers of Johnson's Wax for Home and Industry, in cooperation with the Council on Books in Wartime, proudly presents one of the most widely discussed programs in America, Words at War, dramatizations of the most representative books to come out of this great world conflict. And with us again tonight is one of the keenest judges of good books in America, the eminent author, biographer, and Pulitzer Prize winner, Mr. Carl Van Doren. Mr. Van Doren.
If I'm any judge, tonight's program will stick in your minds for a long time to come, but it's based on one of the most shock-filled books of our day. I'll tell you something about book and author just as soon as Jack Costello finishes a brief message from our sponsors.
If you were out in your car today, you probably noticed one thing. In spite of their age, a large number of the cars on the road still look very new. If you'd stopped to ask their owners, you'd have found that many of them long ago learned the easy way to keep the finish of their cars clean and sparkling. I mean, of course, with Johnson's Car New. Car New is designed for times like these. A polish that's easy enough to use so that you and I or our wives or youngsters can do the job ourselves. Car New does two jobs at the same time. Both cleans and polishes with one application. Car New is a liquid which dries to a white powder. Wipe off this powder and your car shines like a mirror again. Incidentally, if you don't remove that dull road dirt and grime, it may do permanent damage to the finish. It's still a long time before you'll have a new car. Why not keep yours looking as new as possible with Johnson's Car New, spelled C-A-R-N-U, Car New. Mr. Van Doren?
Tonight's Words at War program is based on George Creel's book, War, Criminals, and Punishment. It poses the question, what are we going to do with Hitler when we have ended the war he started? George Creel, you know, served as the chairman of the Committee on Public Information in the last war, roughly the equivalent of the jobs now held by Elmer Davis and Byron Price, and is at present the Washington correspondent of Collier's magazine. His book, War, Criminals, and Punishment, is the most outspoken indictment of a people that has appeared in a generation. We bring it to you in the form of an open letter to Hitler and his gang, written by a man who has read Creel's book and wants the American public to know what kind of job is still ahead of us if justice is to be done. This is the open letter.
My dear Adolf, this letter is addressed not only to you, but to the others in your Axis gang. This letter is addressed to all the crooks and perverts. To yourself, to Mussolini and Tojo, to Himmler, Goering, Goebbels, Rosenberg, von Papen, Ribbentrop, Quisling, and all the rest. Yes, dear Adolf, to all of these, and to approximately 80 million of your fellow Germans, this letter is written. But for convenience sake, I shall address it mainly to you. Have you serve as a symbol for the lot. Do you mind? Practically every American who can put one word after another has written you a public letter or has planned to write such a letter, Adolf. They've presented these letters in every way. Stage, screen, radio, what have you. And now it's my turn. But I promise you one thing, Adolf. This letter will be different from the others you've received. Quite different. Wait and see. Still, let me make a confession. If I hadn't read George Creel's War Criminals and Punishment, this letter to you would not have been different. If I hadn't read that carefully documented book, this letter to you would have been pretty much the same as all the others. There wouldn't have been much regard for realism in it, Adolf, but there would have been lots of fancy stuff, such as filter effects and echo chambers and guns booming vengeance. And there would have been voices. Oh, yes. Whispering voices, shouting voices, matter-of-fact reporting voices, each of them with a job to do.
I should have been voice number one. In clip reporting tones, I should have traced your early history. The beer hall putsch, the intimidation of the German people by the Nazi hoodlums, the rise to power of Adolf Hitler.
Next?
Next, we should have had our say. The whispering, half-frightened voices of the people of Europe.
Why don't Britain and France stop him?
He has taken over the Tsar. He has marched his troops into the Rhineland in defiance of the Treaty of Versailles.
He has murdered Dollfuss, marched into Austria.
Can nothing stop him? Now it's the Sudetenland he wants. That's Czechoslovak territory. But we Czechs are not afraid. Britain and France will not let him take our country.
And then?
The meeting of Munich has guaranteed peace in our time.
Yes, Adolf. If I hadn't read George Creel's book, that's the slant this story might have taken as a starter. Probably it would have gone on from there to describe the horrendous cruelties of yourself and your gangster friends, all told in terms that would have torn at the heartstrings of my sentimental fellow Americans. And then, at the proper moment, there would have been a fanfare to proclaim the heightening of the drama. And after the fanfare, a giant roll of the thunder drum. And then a strident voice.
Remember Pearl Harbor!
Are coming again. The Yanks are coming again.
And thus, Adolf, I would have shown the Yanks on the march again. And inevitably, once more, would have come the voices, all of them symbolically striking terror into your black heart. Voices with all the brisk self-confidence of an H.V. Cottonborn.
Our troops drive Rommel out of Africa. We take Sicily. We invade Italy. Rome falls. Eisenhower launches invasion of France.
At this point, Adolf, I suppose I might have switched the scene to you. Probably shown you in your mountain castle in Berchtesgaden, cowering in a closet at the approach of a bunch of G.I. Joes. Oh, this would have been a great scene, Adolf. The listeners would have laughed themselves sick at the spectacle of you, the killer of millions, cringing and shaking as you were carried off to your doom by the grinning American doughboys. Yes, pal, for this scene, I think I would even have indicated a comical musical curtain.
But soon, Adolf, the music would change to another theme. A dignified, somber, yet hopeful theme. A theme one might use to describe the majesty of world law and order making ready to try him who had sinned against it. And the carefully spaced raps of the gavel would tell the listeners that here at last was the moment of high drama for which they had waited. The trial of Adolf Hitler. I can see that trial now, Adolf. Everyone, from the lowliest Russian peasant to the prelates of the Vatican, would submit documents against you. And in writing such a scene, I should be untrue to my craft if I did not employ dramatic license and bring in the most convincing witnesses of all.
I bear witness against you, Adolf Hitler. I am one of those who know full well the horror and inexcusable excesses of Nazi brutality. Because firing squads and bayonets were too slow for Nazi hate, you squeezed thousands of little people into pens and blew them up with hand grenades. I was one of those thousands.
I bear witness against you, Adolf Hitler. You herded us into freight cars, their floors inches deep in wet quicklime, and packed to the suffocation point with barefooted wretches. Then your lackeys locked the doors and pushed the cars into the forest, where no one could hear us scream as our flesh was eaten away.
I bear witness against you, Adolf Hitler. I lived in the Russian town of Kiev. In September 1941, your Nazi officials drove some 60,000 buses out of the city to a great gully called Babi Yar, or the Woman's Ravine. After being stripped bare, all of us, men, women, and children, were lined up on the edge and machine-gunned, our bodies toppling down into the gully. It was the most clever device to save the labor of burial.
I can add to that testimony against you, Adolf Hitler. I was a Russian soldier, a prisoner of yours when you killed and buried those 60,000 citizens of Kiev in one scientific operation. But in August 1942, when the swift advance of the Russian armies made Kiev's recapture fairly certain, your Germans decided that it would be wise to destroy all evidence of their crime. Accordingly, they dispatched 100 of us Russian prisoners to the Women's Ravine for the purpose of uncovering and burning the corpses. I alone dug up 5,000 or 6,000 bodies. Most of them were old people, children, and babies. We dragged the bodies with iron hooks 30 or 40 yards to incinerators. They were made of iron fences of the Jewish cemetery. The bodies were put on iron grates, one layer of bodies alternating with a layer of kerosene-soaked wood. Each contained almost 4,000 bodies. During the operation, Gestapo officers arrived frequently with trucks full of Russian prisoners whom they had murdered. They also brought some prisoners who were conscious, unconscious, but alive and still breathing. These, too, were thrown in to be burned. Prisoners who weakened while working on the incinerators were shot on the spot and thrown into the fires. I, Adolf Hitler, was one of those who weakened.
I, too, bear witness against you, Adolf Hitler.
I also bear witness against you, Adolf Hitler.
And then, Adolf, I would have presented the really big moment, the gripping climax of the drama.
Adolf Hitler, rise and face your judges. Adolf Hitler, it is the judgment of this court that you...
Well, what fate would I have given you, Adolf? You know as well as I do that any death would be too good for you. don't you? But that's not the point. You also know as well as I do that you're going to make suckers of us all, Adolf. You know that neither you nor your gangster pals will ever be brought to justice. On the other hand, if the American people listen hard enough during the next few minutes, and if they get mad enough as they listen, who knows? It might be that all you and all your gang would end up as guests of honor at a hanging party after all. Wouldn't that be cute, But I'm still betting against it, Adolf. I'm still betting you'll make suckers of us all.
For the benefit of late comers, this is Carl Van Doren bringing you a dramatization based upon George Creel's searching book, War, Criminals, and Punishment, another of the Words at War series presented each week by the makers of Johnson's Wax. We have seen this letter written to all the Axis gangsters, but for simplicity's sake addressed to Adolf Hitler. We have seen it document page by page the terrible crimes of Hitler and company. And then when the documentation was complete, when all the incontrovertible proof was presented, we have heard the writer of the letter make the flat statement that Hitler and gang would get away with their crimes. Were you startled by this? Have you come to the conclusion that the writer of the letter doesn't know what he's talking about? Do you want proof?
Well, let's get down to cases, Mr. Hitler. None of our listeners has called me up yet threatening to shoot me, so maybe they're willing to listen to see if I can prove my point. So I shall attempt to do so, simply, without fuss or fanfare. But let's not keep them waiting. Okay, voices on mic.
All right, let's get up here now. I'm first voice.
I'm number 2.
Now then, what's the point we want to prove? Voice 1.
We shall prove that Mr. Hitler and his gang have not only one chance of escaping punishment for their crimes against humanity, but 3 such chances.
And do we just manufacture this proof? Voice 2.
We certainly don't. We take it from the documented records of history.
All right. All voices in order, please. What is Mr. Hitler's first chance of escape? Tell the little man himself.
Your first chance of escape, Mr. Hitler, is that the new German government, which will be set up by the Allies after your defeat, may refuse to deliver you and your gang for trial, on the grounds that such degradation of their national heroes would cause a revolution.
What possible reason could we have for believing such a thing could happen?
Well, it happened last time. That's exactly what happened. That's how Ludendorff and Hindenburg and Stulpnagel and the rest escaped trial after World War I.
Exactly. Now, what is Mr. Hitler's second chance to escape?
Your second chance of escape, Mr. Hitler, will come if you and your gang are brought to trial, just as it did for others after World War I. You'll remember that then, out of all the thousands of German war criminals, only 49 little, unimportant men were brought to trial.
Yes, and those 49 were tried not by the people whom they had abused, but by their fellow Germans, in a German court in Leipzig under German rules of law.
And the verdicts?
German verdicts. Less than a half a dozen were found guilty of any offense. Men who had butchered helpless children, men who had split the windpipes and broken the backs of defenseless Allied prisoners of war, were either applauded by the German court and the German crowd, or were merely reprimanded for being too enthusiastic in the performance of their duty.
Yes. And none of those few found guilty served more than a few weeks in jail.
You see, Mr. Hitler? All right. Tell him what his third chance of escape is.
Your third chance of escape, Mr. Hitler, is to fly to a neutral country. You and all your criminal colleagues can always do that.
Will it work?
Oh, why not? It worked last time. That's what Kaiser Bill did. He escaped into neutral Holland, set himself up on a beautiful estate in Dorn, and lived on the millions sent to him by an admiring German people. And Holland refused to give him up to the Allies.
Now, let me be naive for a minute. Surely that can't happen this time.
Oh, can't it?
Have the neutral nations been approached on the matter?
They certainly have. But their replies have either been cold to the point of rebuff or else so cautious as to be meaningless.
What did Spain and Portugal answer?
Spain and Portugal were non-committal.
How about Argentina and Turkey?
Well, they stated that they would, quote, conform to the principles of international law, unquote, a distinct evasion.
And Sweden?
Sweden merely took note of the request without giving an answer. And Switzerland...
Oh, yes. What about Switzerland?
Switzerland tartly replied that she would be guided by due regard for her own sovereignty. That, brother, is the cooperation we're getting from the neutrals.
See what I mean, Mr. Hitler? There isn't a chance they'll get you unless... But let me return to my naivete for another minute. Let's scare the pants off of Adolf, fellas. Let's remind him that regardless of difficulties, with all of us allies being united on this matter, we can bring enough pressure to bear to see that justice has its day.
Save your breath, brother. United? The heck we are. Why, already the sentimentalists and the lawyers in love with the sterility of their profession are insisting on, quote, proper judicial procedure, unquote. Listen to...
Oh, no, wait up. What's wrong with, quote, proper judicial procedure, unquote?
Well, nothing, except who is to say what is proper judicial procedure. Watch a couple of lawyers battling in a traffic court about what the law is or is not, and I tell you that by the time the lawyers get it settled, dear Adolf and his gang will have died of old age.
And in addition, lend an ear to some of our best pulpits, all the way from the Archbishop of Canterbury down the line. What do you hear? Horror at the thought of bombing German cities. Sermons for a policy of loving kindness. Turn the other cheek. Whatever else we are in our treatment of war criminals, please, let's be conservative.
See what I mean, Mr. Hitler? And we're not making it up. Oh, no. It's all in George Creel's book. Documented. Proved. I hope you won't think me prejudiced, Mr. Hitler. I'm not. I just want to see you hanging from the highest gibbet in Christendom. So do most of my fellow Americans. And why? Not because we're vengeful. No. Merely because we know that if you get away with it, someday another Hitler will come along to bring disaster to the world. And please don't let me hear that bull about the democratic, decent Germans making another dictator impossible over there. You've killed or banished most of the decent Germans. And democracy has never stood a chance in Germany anyway. 3 times in 70 years, the German people have banded like robots under a dictator and have marched out to ravage the world. 3 times in 70 years. Decency? Freedom? Democracy? Nuts. The German people don't even know what the words mean. Here, voice number 7.
Yeah?
Read what George Creel says about the German people.
Okay. Before the ink was dry on the Treaty of Versailles, while Belgians and Frenchmen hunted in ruined homes for their dead, America rang to a chorus of pity for the poor Germans. Today, with conquered lands knowing every horror of enslavement, there is a definite movement to have it believed that Hitler's organized savagery does not represent the popular German will. That's bunk. American correspondents bear witness that German citizens, without urging or official order, killed and tortured Jews no less enthusiastically than did the stormtroopers. It was not only brown shirts who fed the bonfires at the book-burning Mr. Hitler, but German university students. Shall I go on?
Oh, certainly. Continue.
Okay. Over here in America, plays and films applauded by packed houses
exploit the courage and heroism of a German underground movement. There is no such movement. Poles, Czechs, Dutch, and French are resisting to the death. Each day, new thousands are thrown into unmarked graves. But not from a single authoritative source is there word of such resistance in Germany. Those that might have dared were killed or jailed at once.
And who's to blame for all this malarkey going the rounds? Why, the American sentimentalists, of course. But the sentimentalists have their little helpers. And you know who they are? The refugees. More particularly, the articulate refugees, like Hermann Rausnik and Prince Hubertus zu Löwenstein.
Hey, wait a minute, mister. I'm just a plain American, and that don't seem right, talking about the refugees. In America, we love the refugees.
Oh, yes, I know. The love, adoration, and applause of German refugees is a national sport second only to baseball. And not that a lot of them don't deserve it. But listen, let's hear what Creel says.
Many of the German refugees in the United States and England have no larger conception of democracy than Hitler himself. They blame only the Führer, not the militaristic, imperialistic German mentality which made Hitler not only possible, but welcome. Many of those refugees most vocal today played a prominent part in the overthrow of the Weimar Republic. Many of them still have as a secret slogan, Deutschland über alles. They still refer plaintively to what they call the infamous Treaty of Versailles as a complete excuse for every German crime. Want some more?
No, that's enough. That ought to get the idea across.
Then, can I add a prayer?
A prayer? Why, sure.
From the American and British sentimentalists, from many of the German refugees, good Lord, deliver us.
Amen. Well, Mr. Hitler, you can see what we're after. We make no bones about it. It's our hope that if the truth is spread wide enough, your nation will never again threaten the peace of the world. And no nation will ever again spawn devils like yourself and your friends. That's our hope. Frankly, I still believe it's doomed to fate. But you can never be sure, Mr. Hitler. Who knows? Maybe our people will wake up. Maybe they'll rise up on their hind legs and tell the sentimentalists to shut their traps. Maybe the American people will make such an awful row that no neutral nation would dare give you sanctuary. Maybe they'll insist on the three-point plan of action that alone can save the world. And no one knows better than you, Mr. Hitler, what those 3 points are.
Point 1. Unconditional surrender, followed by military occupation of Germany to enforce permanent disarmament.
Point 2. The arrest and arraignment of all war criminals from the highest to the lowest, uncomplicated and unimpeded by the slow, tortuous processes of civil courts.
Point 3. An instant end to Prussia's evil, brutal domination of the German Empire. The smashing for all time of the gun-toting Prussian Reich.
Yes, Mr. Hitler. Maybe our American people will set their hearts and souls on attaining these 3 points. If they do, maybe, there'll be peace in our children's time. I remain very sincerely yours, one American.
I'm going to present a message on behalf of our sponsors, after which Mr. Carl Van Doren will return to tell us about next week's Words at War program. A home where the floors, furniture, and woodwork are regularly waxed does become more and more beautiful. It takes on added refinement and charm, that mellow, richly polished look that good housekeepers so much admire. Yet with all that beauty, the number one service of Johnson's Wax is protection. When you apply a coat of the paste or liquid wax to your floors or furniture, you're protecting their surfaces with a tough, invisible shield. This wax shield itself takes all the wear, and the surface underneath is safe. And this is just as true for a tabletop or windowsill as it is for a floor that gets hard wear. This protection of surfaces with Johnson's Wax makes them last much longer, saves money on refinishing, and of course it saves you work all year because your daily or weekly cleaning is so much easier. The polished beauty, which is known so well to Johnson's Wax users, is really an added advantage, like an extra dividend. Now, Mr. Van Doren, what about next week's program?
Next week, our words of war will be taken from a book that made me laugh a lot as I read it, Donald Huff's Captain Retread. A very good story of a World War I soldier who joins up this time and discovers that it's rather different. This is Carl Van Doren, inviting you to be with us again next week, and until then, goodbye.
Tonight's dramatization was written by Richard McDonough and featured Ned Weaver. Music was composed and conducted by Morris Momorsky, and the production was under the direction of Anton M. Leader. Next week, the Johnson Wax program presents Captain Retread on Words at War. Jack Costello speaking. This is the National Broadcasting Company.